Obviously, it is partial integration. The question is whether there's a track to full integration. I think that's one of the questions that will be asked. As far as I can examine it, there is not necessarily a track for that. There's a track for a bit more integration, but not full political rights. I think that's not something that has been aggressive. For example, in Statia, that was rejected in a referendum, and autonomy was voted upon, and that was the choice of the people of Statia. The choice of the people of Bonaire rejected the present status. So the question that the gentleman asked about whether it is too late to move forward, I think no. It depends on really what this is about. I think, in my view, is the implementation of what the people decided, and that's where the determination will be made as to what Bonaire or Statia would seek to become. Having already decided that after 5 years, before the first 5-year period, that this is not, it did not develop into what it was expected to be. And of course, recognizing that Statia never voted for it, they voted to remain in the Netherlands Antilles, but one of the previous island councils decided to accept the public entity status, and that motion was agreed, accepted, recognized. The subsequent motion to accept the results rejecting the status that was imposed upon it, which the Island Council had agreed to, that motion is now also has been adopted, so that is the will of the people of Statia, on the same basis that the previous motion to accept the public entity status was a reference to recommendation and the will of the people of Statia. So no, it's not too late. There's a question on Resolution 742. That's the resolution of that removed, yes? I don't read that resolution in that way. I think that there's another resolution, 2625, which was 1970, came later, and that's the one that is being pointed to as a resolution that looks at alternatives. But what happens, any resolution that came prior to 1960, the period between 1947 and 1960, or 1959, there was a series of UN resolutions that were essentially the building blocks of defining what full self-government was. Up to that point, there were some very general terms, general definitions, and also the composition of the United Nations during that time was mainly countries that had territories themselves. So they were, trying to justify their link. But many of them, to the credit, were also looking to promote the self-determination of territories that they held. It was really quite later. If you look after 1960, we'll talk a bit about that later this evening, the question of the period of acceleration of decolonization after 1960 until 1990. There's an accelerated period of decolonization, territories achieving full self-government through independence, some through full integration, some through autonomy. One of those that was recognized, those are the three recognized options. Now, of course, by 1990, something happened, which was the Cold War, which ended the ending of the Cold War, and all of a sudden, colonization was seen as a Cold War issue, and therefore Cold War is over, so decolonization is finished. And then there was also the question of what emerged from the end of the Cold War was one superpower. That was the perception at the time, which didn't last very long, certainly. But the idea was that it was one superpower, and that those countries that had territories in their hemisphere decided, well, we better, hold on to what we have. So all of a sudden, to try to keep them honest, I suppose, but all of a sudden the promotion of self-determination was made a little bit more difficult. Well, you have to have a referendum now. At one point, if the political party that won the election favored a political option, then it's assumed that that's the option that the people wanted. But then now the issue of referendum was introduced. But the interesting thing is that referenda held in territories are under the rules of the administering country. So in many ways, that is a difficult. They can establish very high criteria for voting. They can decide, or even high percentage of voters to make it legitimate. They think that the situation that took place in St. Eustatius in 2014 was very clear on the question of how a situation can deteriorate because of just
Oyente, nos llega na final de nossa transmissão, Jawe, pelo que trata esse seminário, nos que invitamos para amanhã dia honor, nós dotin de nosso estúdio, Dr. Carla Corbin, que vinha com nosso tuma também, pergunta com a que assim, para arribar esse sucesso aqui. Nós queremos agradecer a permitir-nos, nós pedimos desculpa para a parte que vinha a transmissão abaixo tiki for demand, de internet, e nós bisa tema yang com Deus, ok.